All right. Hi, everyone. My name is John Neral. I help professionals show up more energetically to make the impact they want. And we've been having some technical difficulties this afternoon, but albeit aside, I am broadcasting this on my personal page and not my business page at John Neral Coaching LLC. But I am so grateful to welcome a fantastic person and friend and professional to the show. Please welcome, she's known as the LinkedIn Diva and your connection consultant. Please welcome Rhonda Sher. Rhonda, welcome.
Thanks, John. I'm so happy to be here. And if we didn't have technical difficulties on April Fool's Day, I think something would be wrong.
You know, that's very, very well said, and I appreciate that. So normally, like I said, these are broadcasted on the business page, but we had a couple of technical difficulties. So for any of you who are seeing this live on my personal page, I come every week, particularly with a guest, to help you around your leadership and career ambitions. And I invited Rhonda on the show today because a couple years ago, we had a conversation because you were inquiring about hiring a business coach for public speaking, Orlia Moore, who I had hired.
Sure.
Wanted to know my experiences, which were great. And in the course of that conversation, I asked you, what do you do? And you told me how you optimize LinkedIn profiles and you help people navigate LinkedIn more strategically. And at the end of that conversation, I hired you. And I hired you to optimize my LinkedIn profile, and I have never regretted it. So if you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, please do so. It's just John Neral over on LinkedIn. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Is we're going to talk about how to leverage the power of LinkedIn now, especially in this new normal of COVID-19 and so many people working from home. So just as we get started, Rhonda, how have things changed for you in helping people with LinkedIn right now?
Well, you know, one of the things that I did a webinar actually last week or 2 weeks ago for a group of divorce coaches. And, you know, and I always update all the webinars that I do. But one of the things that I learned myself, which I knew but didn't see the statistics on, is 90% of the people on LinkedIn are on Facebook. 90%. So here's the thing that's really interesting, though. And you were probably part of that group before we started working together. The people that are on LinkedIn, because now everybody's getting checked out. And we want to know, well, who are you and how can you help me in this time when people are transitioning into a more online world? We really don't have a choice, right?
Right.
So what I'm finding is that you have these superstars that are what I like to call in witness protection. In other words, they're great and they're not showing up in a way that people know who they are, what they do, what problems they solve, and what third-party validation exists for them. So now more than ever, and remember, 70% of the time when somebody Googles you, if you have a LinkedIn profile, it's going to show up on the first page of Google. So now more than ever, it's so important to show up as the expert you are and get out of witness protection.
So I love that statistic. And you know, one of the things that I'm hearing from a lot of people right now, both clients and people I'm networking with, is they're trying to navigate this LinkedIn landscape where in the past, when they'd go to the office and they'd go to these networking events and stuff like that, LinkedIn was something they felt they should have, but they weren't exactly sure how to use it. So my question is, what is the best way for us to leverage LinkedIn right now, whether it be for generating new business or simply just networking virtually right now in the midst of COVID-19?
Yeah, and I think what you're really saying, John, is how do I use it both for lead gen, but more for credibility? And so the system that I talk about is the 3 Ps. And the first one is presentation, right? How am I showing up? And the truth is that most people don't realize that every second 2 new people are joining. 94% of B2B content is actually found on LinkedIn. People are pushing it out through LinkedIn. So the first thing that people want to be aware of is, how are you showing up? Look at your profile. Does it have a picture of you with a selfie, or does it have a really professional headshot like yours does? Do you have a banner, or are you using the banner that LinkedIn gives you, just the plain blue sky, right? I know on yours, it has your credentials, because you can choose any coach, but getting the credential that you have takes a lot of work, right? You have a logo. So that's the first thing is, that first thing when you get there, okay, how are you being branded? And then underneath your name, again, think about Google. You're going to go look for somebody. You're going to put in a very specific search, right? If I'm going to look for an ophthalmologist in Carlsbad, California, because that's where I want to have, that's what I'm looking for. My search on Google is going to be very specific. It's going to be ophthalmologist in Carlsbad, California. And what I'm going to look for is I'm going to look to see, not necessarily on LinkedIn with an ophthalmologist, but you know what I want to see? What are the Google reviews? Because when I did that, the guy I selected had 553 5-star reviews. So think about it. When you go to LinkedIn, what do you want somebody to see? You want them to know, what do you do? So if you just have your title underneath your name and they don't know you, they will never find you. If you have executive coach, you're one of the hundreds of thousands of executive coaches.
Right.
And then secondly, then there's what they call the about section. So you have those first 2 or 3 lines to get somebody to click my favorite 2 words on there, see more. Makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what most people do is they put, 25 years experience doing blah, 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 or it doesn't tell somebody enough that they're going to want to keep reading. You have to step into the shoes of that ideal client, the ideal referral partner, the person that's checking you out, and tell them what they want to know so that they're going to keep reading.
Love all of that. And those are things too, Rhonda, where just even the very simple fact of having a good headshot is something anybody can do.
Yep.
How many times have you and I both seen where we see somebody in that little circle and it's a full body shot, or it's too far away and we never really get to know who that person looks like simply just by having a really clear photo. And that is also a big piece just about how we begin starting to connect virtually with everybody.
Absolutely. I mean, and a lot of people make the mistake of using avatars. So they use a cartoon character, or they have 2 people in the picture because maybe they're a husband and wife that do business together, or they get those credibility. So ABC, CBS, and they put that next to their picture. None of that is helping them. And I still remember a potential client that called me. And she said, I don't understand. I send out hundreds of messages. I'm reaching out to people and I can't get anything. In fact, LinkedIn shut me down. So I jumped over to her profile, and John, she had a picture of her and her sister in their college graduation gowns holding a beer. Okay. And then I said, well, what's the message that you're sending out? And the message was, we have the best solar system, blah, blah, blah. When would you like to set up an appointment? And I said, okay. When you have a first date with somebody or a first meeting, do you say, gee, I'd like you to come home. I'd like you to see the house. Let's talk about how many kids we're going to have, what our budget's going to look like. You don't even know me, but you're trying to sell me, right? What happened to service, not sales? So the picture is really the first starting point. And it doesn't, you can literally take a picture with just, somebody else standing behind you with the phone, and it will look professional.
Such a good point. Absolutely. Hold on, I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. Hold on. Okay, hopefully that takes care of it. Rhonda, such great points. And for anybody that's listening, if you have any questions for us specifically to ask Rhonda, anything related to LinkedIn, please go ahead and put it into the chat. I'll make sure we get to that at the end of the interview. Rhonda, one of the other questions that comes up a lot from people is about when they should accept connection requests, or how should they accept connection requests, specifically from people whom they don't directly know. What's your advice on that for people?
So I'm a little bit different in terms of what I say. There are a lot of people that will say, if you don't know them, don't accept them. But then if that's the case, right, you're never going to grow your network. So what I look for is, number one, do we have connections in common? Number two, you don't have to have 501 connections, but, because everybody has to start somewhere, right? But do you have at least a couple hundred connections? Is it clear that that you're not really trying to sell me, but there's some value there, right? There's something, are you a real person? And is there going to be some benefit to this? Because if you know how to use your privacy settings, then your view of everybody that you're connected to is not going to be visible to the world. So the analogy I like to use, John, is if you were going to invite these people to your home, would you be willing to sit out in the back porch with them and have a glass of lemonade? If the answer is yes, then you would accept them. You might not bring them into your home, but you might meet them at Starbucks. You might have them on your back porch for a nice cold drink. So that's what you want to think about. And on the other side of that, when you're extending the invitations to people, make sure you always thank them for accepting your invitation and then continue the dialogue. Because if you don't, then all you have is a bunch of connections that are kind of like the first cousins that you didn't know you had. They only show up at your wedding and your funeral, right?
Yeah. Such a good point. What's your take on sending a connection request to somebody? Are you an advocate of including a message with that, or is it just okay to hit the connect button and leave it there?
I believe that you need to send a very personalized connection request, and it needs to be a little bit more than generic. So it might be something like, "Hi, John. Notice that we share some common connections. We're both in the coaching arena, and that we actually share other things in common as well, such as I'm a former East Coast person. Would love to connect and learn more about you and how we might be able to work together or be a resource for one another. Best regards." Okay. You would see that. And by the way, on the phone, I want to point out, on your phone, whenever you see 3 dots, click the 3 dots because you can personalize the invitation from your phone. So never just hit connect, because that just says, look, I'm lazy. I'm just going connect, 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 connect. And when somebody sends a personalized message, you're going to read it. And you're more than likely going to jump over to their profile. And you never know what magic is going to happen from that. So that's a great question.
No, thanks. I just as a side note, right before our interview today, I had a networking call with somebody who I connected with on LinkedIn back in December or January. And I got the connection request and followed up and said, "Thank you so much for connecting. I'm really curious. What was your motivation for wanting to connect with me?" And it just opened up a really nice dialogue between us. He happens to be a brand strategist and owns his own brand strategy company or strategic planning company. And we started off the conversation and said, "So how's life been for you over the last few months?" Because we hadn't messaged each other really since January, and then the world got turned on its ear, but we still honored this networking call. And we just had this great call for 30 minutes and learned more about each other and our work and where we see things progressing. And just because of the power of LinkedIn, I now have a really wonderful and valuable professional connection in my network that is far more personal than if we had just exchanged a message and never said, "Hey, thanks for connecting."
Absolutely. And, you've got an amazing beginning there, right? So what you might want to do is, just calendar that every quarter, right? Or every however often, send another message. And maybe it's just something that they might find of value. One of the things that I've been doing, which has really, really been very effective, and my clients are doing it, is in sending messages, I'm sending video messages. And the video message is so powerful because what it does is it says, "Hi, we're connected on LinkedIn." Notice I didn't say your name because I'm not going to record this 100 times, right? "Hi, we've been connected for a while, but we've actually never had a conversation. I would love to know more about what you do. Since we're both sheltered in place right now, let's set up a virtual cup of coffee and make it a no sales zone call. Here's a link to my calendar. Let's get to know each other." And, what might happen is that person might not need my services, right? But what if there's somebody who is in transition and needs your services? So I can be of service and say, oh my gosh, I know somebody that you need to talk to. This is actually a client of mine who is amazing at coaching and working with people in transition. Let me make an introduction for you. So you never know what can come out of those virtual cups of coffee.
Right. Absolutely. I love that idea of a video message. I hadn't thought of that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, great. Cool.
Rhonda, share a success story with us or two, please, about some of the amazing work that you've had a chance to do in helping people optimize their LinkedIn profiles.
So the first one that comes to mind is a woman named Nicole. And Nicole is a very, very accomplished event planner. Okay. Mm-hmm. And she's done everything from the wedding plans to the corporate world. And she was referred by one of her colleagues to an event planning gig that was worth $30,000 for a pharmaceutical company. And what she was told was, they're going to check you out on LinkedIn. That's the only platform to them that matters. It doesn't make a difference what your website is. So she hired me to create her profile because it really was just so bland. It didn't really show who she was. So we focused on now more of the pharmaceutical. She'd done a lot of that. And she got a $30,000 engagement from that profile. I mean, that's just one. I have another client, Doug, who's a ghostwriter. Now, there's a lot of ghostwriters on LinkedIn, but what he does is quite different. He not only ghostwrites your book, he creates your funnels, he shows you how to get on stage, he does it as a bestseller. And so it's a complete done for you package, right? Mm. In the first month, he generated $30,000 in business. And within 4 months, he had a waiting list. And those are not unusual stories.
Right. That's great.
It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
That's great to hear. Absolutely. Couple more questions as we keep continuing. So thank you. So what are some of the biggest mistakes people make on LinkedIn?
Oh, so one of the biggest mistakes they make is they don't put their contact information. Seriously, have you ever seen a profile where there's no website, there's no email, there's no phone number? And they actually have pretty good profiles. It's like, how am I going to find you? Mm-hmm. You're in witness protection beyond witness protection, right? Or they have dead links. So if you want people to reach you, make sure you give them a way to reach you, right? Mm-hmm. And the second mistake I see, and I think this is just something that has to do with human nature. If I said to you, John, who's the ideal client that you would like to be working with and attract? And we went through this process, right? You would say what? What would you say?
My ideal client is somebody who is in career transition, particularly mid-career. They fear being stuck. They fear not being able to make the impact they want, and they know they need to make a move, but they're not exactly sure how to do it. And so that's where I, as a coach, help them come in and really focus more on how they get to show up professionally so they can go ahead and make that transition.
Exactly. So one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they can't articulate what you just articulated. You just said it's a professional who is in transition, right? I mean, they're where they are in their career. And what I find is that many people just say, I provide, just as an example, okay, let's just talk about coaches in general, right? I provide transformation so that you can live a happier, more fulfilling life. Okay, number one, who's your client? Are you charging $20,000, $10,000, or $150,000? You need to be able to describe who your client is. One of my clients does a $25,000 and a $50,000 mastermind for women. Her LinkedIn profile says, if you are a C-suite woman, or professional making six figures or more and ... It clearly defines who she's helping, who she's looking for. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make. They say LinkedIn doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work because you're not telling people who it is that you serve and the problem that you solve, right? So I think that's the second one. And then the third thing, and I think this is really, really important. I look at profiles all the time, and the recommendations, that section of recommendations, are literally older than the shoes in my closet, right? I mean, I swear to you, if you see recommendations from 5 years ago or later, those people probably aren't still even around. You want to make sure that your recommendations are current because they can go from that recommendation over to that person's profile, right? So what I like to say is make your ask, ASK, bigger than your but. So when somebody says something really nice about you, say, you know what? I so appreciate your positive comment. I'm going to send you a link. Would you mind writing me a recommendation on LinkedIn? And if I can do the same for you, I'd be happy to do it. Those recommendations, because someone can jump over to that profile, may make the difference between whether they choose you or they choose somebody else.
Well said. I totally agree. Absolutely. Rhonda, what would you say is the biggest difference between a resume and LinkedIn? And specifically where, say, somebody would just take everything they have in their resume and dump it into their LinkedIn profile?
Well, if they're looking for a job, that's a good thing. Okay. And I don't work with job hunters. That's the one area that I don't help people with. However, you want to write your resume. I have what I call the 7 steps of, how you do the 3 steps. 3 steps is present, prospect, profit, right? But there's 7 steps. And the second step of that process is step into the shoes of the ideal client or prospect that you're talking to. So if you're talking to somebody that's in transition, we'll just use you as an example, okay? Do they really care, John, about all of the credentials that you have, the courses that you've taken and where you've worked in the past? Or do they care about the success stories of the clients that you've helped that now have the jobs of their dreams? They're feeling more comfortable. They're living a life that they always dreamed of. And they have skills that they now can put into place because of their coaching with you. Or do they really just want to know what are your credentials? They want both. But the credentials are a very small part of it, unless you're looking for a job. And then you still want both.
Yeah, and thank you for clearing that up, because I think that what I have seen is that there is that, how is the difference between a resume and a LinkedIn, and what you have shown me a lot as well, and it was so well said there too, is that the LinkedIn is really designed to hone very specifically in on the value that you get to provide. So for me as a business owner, as a coach, it's the value I get to provide to my clients. But it can also be for someone who is in that job transition to provide, what is their value that they're giving to an organization based on the work they've done in the past.
Exactly. And I'll add one thing that could really help those people, potentially your clients and people who are in transition. And that is put video testimonials of people that have worked with you so that they hear the third party, right? Even if you were at your last position, it might be something like, John is so detail oriented, he will literally not leave until the job is done. If you're looking for a team player that, treats the team the way that he treats his family, so you want other people to give you that third party validation. And video is probably one of the best ways, because you can't really lie on a video. It's not just saying Mary S. Mm-hmm. They get to see you, they get to experience you.
Absolutely. And we need to get better with video. We need to get better in doing video testimonials and things, but that is such a great point. So Rhonda, I want to thank you. You've given us so much today, and I'm going to change something up a little bit, not as a surprise or a shock to you in that regard. But I'm going to modify the last question I always ask my guests. And we're just going to modify it in this way. So what is one way that people can show up more energetically on LinkedIn?
I love that, more energetically. So what I would say is, outside of having the banner, the headline, and the about section, create an introduction video in your introduction video. So that might be just something like, hi, I'm Rhonda Sher. I actually can help you to, and I just go through what it is, right? But in that about section, okay, in bold, say, if you'd like to know more or just see my self-introduction, just click below, because people move at the speed of direction, right? So if you really want them to see you, because the links are not live, right? When you put that in your about section, tell them to just click below, and you've created a special introduction for them so they can get to know who you are. And it doesn't have to be more than 90 seconds, but how else can you see the energy when it's on paper? It's static.
Right.
Right?
Great point.
So you're going to go do one, aren't you?
What's that?
You're going to go create one because your energy is awesome.
I'm going to put that on my list. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we work from home anyway. So in some ways, this hasn't been drastically different for us in terms of our workday. I think what's been drastically different is the clients we serve, the people who we're working with, how we're connecting and networking differently because most of the people are at home. So I say that only because my to-do list has gone like this, just because.
Mine too. And, one of the things that I have found is that, we know the blind spot is people don't know what they don't know, right? That's the blind spot. So one of the things where I can help is let's look at your LinkedIn profile and see how other people are seeing it in a way you can't see it. It's just, let's have an audit and take a look at it, because a lot of times it's just a quick fix. They don't even realize, John, that they're sending people to their competitors because they don't know how to use the privacy settings. Remember, you had that and we changed it.
We did. We had to fix that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Rhonda, if somebody wants to reach out to you and connect to either inquire about optimizing their LinkedIn profile or learn more about what you do, what is the best way for them to get in contact with you?
So I'm just going to give you a direct email, which I think is the easiest way. It's linkedindiva@gmail.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn. And it's linkedin.com/IN/ and then my name, Rhonda L. Sher. And when you send me either an email or you send me a connection request, say, I saw you on John Neral's Facebook Live. Okay, so I know where you came from, and you'll get extra super treatment just because you came from John.
They would get extra super treatment anyway, but I appreciate.
That's true, but we'll put the cherry on top. Okay.
Absolutely, I appreciate that, and we've been great referral partners.
We refer back to each other all the time, so yeah, absolutely.
And that's just been great.
And check out John's profile too. If you haven't checked out John on LinkedIn and you're not connected with them, John, you are a wealth of information. In every opportunity that shows up, I want to be able to refer to you because you have such a gift. And the people that have worked with you come back to me and tell me, oh my gosh, how did you find him? And I said, well, I actually didn't, he was an introduction. So there you go.
We got connected, and absolutely. So Rhonda, thank you so much. So again, if anybody wants to reach out to Rhonda, please email her at linkedindiva@gmail.com. I'll have her email address in the show notes as well. If you want to reach out to me with anything, it's always john@johnneral.com. And I also want to just do one little bit of housekeeping, and that is for all of you who have been following. So my book is so close. I'm getting the proof of the book next week, but you still have time to pre-order. You can go to johnneral.com/book, and you can go ahead and pre-order the book. It gets you a signed copy and a couple extra added bonuses as well, including a step-by-step workbook to accompany the book at this time. But the book is called Show Up: 6 Strategies to Lead a More Energetic and Impactful Career. And I am excited to just do a big virtual launch party once this thing is done.
Well, let me know and I'll share it with my 24,000 followers.
Well, Rhonda, thank you so much. I appreciate that greatly. That means a lot. Thank you. So LinkedIndiva@gmail.com. Rhonda, thanks so much for helping me out with all the technical stuff we had to deal with today. As always, you just delivered and provided such great value, and I hope people will reach out and connect with you, be it on LinkedIn or by email as well.
Thanks so much, John. Stay healthy, stay safe, and remember, if you're not LinkedIn, you might be left out.
Love it. Take care, everybody. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.